how you found Cocorico.
So
It's a bit of a pain to set up.
Maybe just before that, just really quickly, just clarifying the purpose of the whole call, just to kind of make this a more shareable thing with the rest of the team. I can have a go at that, and then you just check if you want to add or change anything. So this is a call primarily to check in together, like where we're at with sort of tech development things, like especially regarding playing with Share Tribe and Cocorico as, I guess, kind of version 2 of the Dignity Marketplace, and yeah, just make the most of you being with us, Danny, and hear how you've been tinkering with it and sharing next steps and ideas and stuff.
Cool.
Does that feel like what you guys had in mind?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Nice, cool. All right. Continue.
So I might as well kick off. I have to apologise. I didn't have as much time this week to work on it as I'd hoped. I had 2 job interviews that came out of nowhere on the same day. It was all a bit crazy. But I've spent a few hours setting up Cocorico. So just to fill our audience members in, last week we had a quick chat through Share Tribe, which was a open source marketplace system built in Ruby on Rails, which I set up last week, and which we've got a version up and running on my server, and we had a quick look through and what it does. And my task for this week was to look at an alternative called Cocorico, which is, as far as I know, a similar system, but built on PHP. It's actually built on this thing called Symfony, which is this PHP platform, a little like Ruby on Rails, but built in a different programming language. And what I've basically done this week was to get a version of it up and running on my server, just about. There's still some errors being chucked. Thank you, Luke, for discovering it. It always happens the minute you send an email to anyone, they find an error. But I think I know how to solve it. Oh, hello.
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 Ah, Peter.
Here I am.
Wow.
Hello, Peter. Very nice to meet you.
I'm just going to put my headphones on because this thing can echo.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe, Peter, if you want to mute yourself for now, and Danny can continue with his intro sort of update.
Okay.
Cool. So was it me or Peter you wanted to talk?
I thought you finish your thread. I was thinking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, just to catch Peter up, last week I set up a version of Share Tribe on my server, which is a marketplace framework which is built in Ruby on Rails, and we had a click through. And this week I've been setting up one called Cocorico, which is built on PHP. And I haven't got much further than getting it up and running, I'm afraid. There's still a bug concerning a certificate, which I can fix hopefully this afternoon. But the aim is to try them both out, see how easy in each case it is to get something that looks a bit like Dignity version 1 working on each platform, and then get to a point where we can make a decision if we want to use one of them as a basis for Dignity version 2. The factors in the decision, I think, will be how easy they are to maintain, customize, install, change, etc. And that will be based on in terms of the development resource we have, whether they're more comfortable with Ruby on Rails or PHP, and also the system itself and how well built it is and stuff like that. So just sort of to play with the system, trying to get them to look a bit like the current version, so that we get a feel for how hard they are to work with. And just in terms of the install itself, so far, I found the install for Share Tribe easier, but I think that's more about my experiences. Oh, hello. I'm in an infinite window. Here we go. There we go. So I think that's more about my experience with Ruby on Rails and my lack of experience with PHP than anything else. I think someone who is familiar with a Symfony project might be able to do it better. Yeah, as you can see from the screenshot, the Cocorico one is literally just a vanilla install of it. It looks almost exactly the same as the demo version that they have online. The next step will be, once I fix the bug that Luke found this morning, will be to try playing with it a bit more, trying to do what I did with ShareTribe, which is put some listings up, put some images up, change some of the colors, change some of the text, etc. But in terms of my findings so far, getting Cocorico up on my server was a bit of a hassle. But again, I think it's because I don't know PHP as well as I know Rails. So that's sort of where I am at the moment. Did you guys have any luck finding out what kind of skill set the other collaborators who might have some tech skills might have?
Well, this might be a good opportunity for us to kind of maybe introduce yourselves to each other. Obviously, we've met both of you, but Peter, you haven't met Danny. Danny, you haven't met Peter, so it might be a good chance for you guys to connect, because both more technically minded than we are. Peter, you with us?
Hi.
Hello.
Do you want to do a bit of an intro and explain?
Bit of an intro, yeah. Whew. Yeah, I'm a programmer.
Cool.
So I've been programming for a while. Mainly been sort of industrial programming, really, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Java and the enterprise, sort of recently for quite a number of years. Sort of making headways into web spaces and doing web platforms, but mainly with JavaScript.
Okay.
And then doing REST calls.
Yeah.
So I've tinkered with Ruby. And I've done a PHP or patched maintained a PHP website.
Okay, cool.
So it's not, I wouldn't say a skilled, I'm not an expert on Ruby on Rails.
Sure.
But it's nothing that, without sort of knowing the territory and being led to problems, I can
cool.
definitely fix.
In terms of the JavaScript front end stuff, do you use anything like React or Angular or anything? Or?
Not recently, no.
Okay, no, cool. Because the ShareTribe is a Ruby backend, and then the front end is done in React, which is JavaScript framework. I haven't had a proper chance to look at the code base, but that sounds really interesting. So it sounds like you have a similar level of experience with both PHP and with Ruby on Rails, or would you say your PHP is better?
There's such a long time since I did PHP, and it's kind of like it's a matter of finding the right libraries, and I think Ruby on Rails is quite good for fast development. So and I know they've gone to the REST way, so that's quite good to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so I mean, maybe one thing that might be handy is because I'm also unfamiliar with both code bases. I've managed to install them both, but that's all I've done. I haven't looked through any of the code or seen how it fits together or tried to customize it or anything. I've literally just gone through their online step-by-step install instructions and stuff. So it might be interesting for you to join me in this sort of investigating them both. So I mean, like, maybe if you can get like a local version, I don't know. I mean, like, moving forward, do we want to get a server or something so we can share installs on the server, or like just work locally until we've made a decision? Or I mean,
I think it makes sense to get a server. Like, we're going to need some space to start serving, whatever you call it. I think that's a very reasonable investment. Yeah.
How's the current platform served up? Is it just from a Wix website?
Yeah.
And the demo ones that I've put online are just on my personal Linode, which I've got in London. It's not particularly good one. It's a couple of gig and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and it might well fall over soon because the PHP stuff requires quite a lot of things. But I mean, maybe the first thing to do is it'd be really handy to like, if you want, I can email you some notes on what I did to get it set up. And maybe if you're interested, like just set both platforms up locally and see if you have any insight into which you prefer, or if you think one's got, because then perhaps we could sort of come back and having both played with both. I don't know. It's an interesting one because I don't know whether the decision is one or the other or neither, or I think a lot depends on, because as Pasco sent through there is also some capacity for changing the HTML and the JavaScript on Wix, and it may be that. Hello. And
sorry, no, just Luke can take credit for that. I think you've done
that. Cool. So it may be that we don't want to do this yet, and we want to. I mean, I think it depends on the roadmap really, because I think we've decided that Wix is plenty for the next round of trying to get funding, and we're looking more towards a version 2. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With no expectation of it being ready for the launch, but like in the off chance that I guess just I guess like plan A is that we do the hard launch end of September with the current Wix marketplace, but I guess I don't know if there's prospects of it being doable to get an even more developed, well, a version 2, I guess, in time for then, but no pressure. But I guess that'd certainly be amazing.
I think in between version 1, which is the current Wix platform, and version 2, which presumably is like more functionality and better, I think there's a kind of middle step, which is something that covers all of the functionality of the existing platform, but is on a different system. So like we get one of ShareTribe or Cocorico or some other thing. I mean, both of these I found just through Google search. So, I mean, like if JavaScript, I mean, it sounds like both me and Pete, you're quite comfortable with JavaScript. So maybe there's a Node version or something that we could use that uses JavaScript on the server end as well. But assuming we're dealing with these two, it's just a case of like playing with both of them and seeing which one we can get as quickly to the version 1.
My only thinking would be that because you guys have used Wix and for the launch, you really want to make it look and act how you feel. If you go to a new platform now, that could potentially be difficult. Because you've got a lot of configuration to do and manipulation to do. So it depends on how many people you think will use the platform initially, and whether you can cope with that. I don't know how you cope with that at the moment. But if that's doable, then it's kind of exploring the look and feel using the Wix tool is probably very good and safe for you guys to get to that launch point. And then as numbers pick up, that's when we can try and match the look and feel on whatever server you choose and see how that goes.
One thing we'll need to investigate is, assuming we were to launch with Wix and then we were at some point to move to a version 2, we presumably, because we launched, wouldn't want to lose the users or their data. So we'd need to look into how difficult it is to export that data and replicate it on the new system.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the roadmap at the moment? There's like a sort of, you want to launch in September, is that right?
Yeah, so end of September is down for our launch event, which at the minute is proposed to launch the current version of Wix with a few changes that need to come. And there's no, like Luke said, there's not really any pressure to create a new version by any sort of point. There's no rush.
But I mean, how many? I guess how much data are we going to be dealing with, and how devastating would it be if people had to like re-enter their information and stuff?
Well, there's
I don't
no
think that's
profiles.
devastating.
Is
I think
No.
this.
Sorry, Pasco.
I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think it would be that devastating. I think like to offer people a version 2, I don't think it's that much to ask for people to create a new profile if you're giving them a new bit of tech. I think the type of people that decide to be doers on the marketplace are quite up for putting in, you know, another 5 minutes in order to put their data in. I don't think it's a big ask.
Okay. And is there anything else that Wix provides us that we would lose? Like, is there, I mean, sorry, I don't know the jargon for it, but like tracking the interactions that have already happened, or like auditing, or lists of purchases, or do you see what I mean? Is there like non-user facing information that we have on Wix that we would need to move over to the new system for tax purposes, or for I don't know what I mean, I guess Wix wouldn't have to close down, so we'd still have that information. But
yeah, I mean, we just make, you know, we can make spreadsheets for well, we wouldn't be paying tax anyway. But in terms of the accounting, yeah, I mean, we'll have a document from PayPal because it's all done through that. You know, we'll have an email list which we can send out to find more information. We also have, you know, we'll have a lot of data that we can copy over in table form if we need to. Yeah, the data isn't particularly sort of neat, but it's there if we want it.
Cool. Okay.
I don't think there's any other elements. The profiling will kind of be half done because I'm keeping it on real-time board in terms of the images and the pie charts.
Cool.
So there'll be less work there. Yeah.
I think it might be quite beneficial for me, and probably for Pete as well, to at some point get a feel for what you actually do within Wix and what the back end of Wix is, and sort of what the process is, because it'd be good to make sure we're replicating it. If you see what I mean.
Didn't replicate it. It's ugly.
Or improving it.
Takes
Where then?
awesome. And that's me knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I can talk you through that, what it is, and you know, it's essentially uploading photos, entering people's question data on what their offer is.
Yeah.
And yeah, the matchmaking.
And then in terms of Wix, like when it gets to payment, etc., is that done on Wix as well, or is that all done offline by you guys?
It's all done through Wix, through PayPal.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, and then that'll go into the minute that goes into my personal account. When we eventually have a bank account, then we can make a business PayPal account, and then it will go through that.
And does that? Because I mean, I guess that's the other thing is keeping any of that data and stuff. Because I mean, like, can you get that off Wix if you were to stop paying for it? If there's any like paper trail to do with the transactions and stuff.
The transactions, I'm sure that we can print off invoices. Yeah.
Cool.
Like,
okay, cool.
I doubt they would. I mean, you know, we can carry on paying until we printed off the invoices and then stop.
Yeah. So it sounds like the development of version 1A and then 2, there's no particular time pressure on it. Because I mean, my only concern with going live with the Wix one is if version 2 takes a year, we've got a year's worth of data that we have to port across.
Yeah, I mean.
Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. A year's worth of data from Brighton on Wix site. I mean, that'd be interesting. It'd be quite a lot of work to move over. I still think I don't think it's a big ask to ask people to make a new profile. So that would only be the email addresses, and then quite a lot of value in creating new ways of creating profiles and stuff. So.
And we can always beta it, so we can always have a new version running and say to people, try out the new version if you want to, and as long as you guys don't mind the extra admin of having to deal with both versions, and we could sort of move things across slowly.
That's very true.
How long was Pasco for, like, if Joe Blogs adds photography as a service on our current marketplace, do you think it was like 15-20 minutes of work for that, to get that one service online.
Yeah, I just said that about 15 minutes. And that's me knowing what I'm doing. You can have a look on Rike and see how long it's taken me to profile people as well.
And that just out of interest, how much of that is stuff that you imagine could be automated, and how much of that requires your thought, creativity, decision making, and stuff?
Okay, well, a lot of it is just photo uploads.
Right.
So it depends on the person's commitment to uploading their own related photos, because there's quite a lot of value to that. You know,
I mean, the Cocorico at the moment. Sorry.
Is one thing asking someone to like upload a profile picture. I think it's another one to do related photos. It's easier if they're an artist, but even then, like, it's harder. So uploading related photos is one task. Creating the pie chart is another task. And then I think the rest could be automated. Yeah.
The pie chart, I would hope, is something that can be done or automated as well, because what we'd really like to do is just to put the numbers in and then it displays as a pie chart. And there's ways that we can do that in JavaScript. There's ways we can do that with like charting systems and stuff. So I would hope that it can be data driven rather than someone having to make it. But again, that's something that would be an improvement on the current system rather than replicating it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm wondering what the best, I mean, might it be worth doing some sort of division of labor, like one of us works on ShareTribe, one of us works on Cocorico, or everyone plays with both just to get a feel for what they do? Or
well, I'd like to investigate. Sorry, Luke. So, I'd like to. I'll just like to investigate too. Those platforms and have a look around them. I mean, the thing is that I suppose the vanilla thing is that we use something like React and Node.
Yeah.
And we just have a database, I presume. I mean, this could all be on maybe like an Amazon Web Service.
Yeah. Because that is the third route, is to build it from scratch. The reason that I was looking at Cocorico and ShareTribe was just a way of getting there quicker, saving a bit of money, having a bit of structure. Because, like, I'm imagining that for a start, the Wix platforms, the metaphor is a bit wrong. So at the moment, the Wix platform is a e-commerce shop essentially, and that's not really what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with is more of a marketplace. And I can imagine that building and replicating what we currently have on Wix from scratch, writing it from scratch, I was imagining being quite a lot of work. I mean, I don't know if your instinct is different, Peter, but I think that if either of these two do fit nicely, then it might save work in the long run. It's a tough one because, as I've discovered, having a big system that someone else has built to be able to do whatever anyone might want naturally makes them complicated, and so installing them has been really hard. I've had to make an account with Facebook, even though I don't need the Facebook integration yet. I had to make Google API keys, even though I don't need the Google stuff yet, etc. So it's always my ability to conjure words out of my head is gone today. It's always like a chaos, you know. Okay, it's like go on, Peter.
Yeah. I'm only just suggesting that because when we get a better handle on what we want to do with the data and how we want to manipulate that to be our unique point about the site, it's really how we think about that, and that's in the longer term. So I'm more than happy that for version 2 to be something like I just had a quick look at ShareTribe. Is absolutely fine, and because it's on Ruby and it's sending REST calls backwards and forwards, and is it open source? I can't.
Yes, it is. I chose them both because they're both open source versions of.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of manipulation we can do and things that can boost us in that direction.
Yeah.
And then if we get good at fiddling with the reactive library and making look and feel, we can then just try making our own node server at some later point, where if you know, ShareTribe doesn't provide that sort of data change like the way that they've set it up, and doesn't make it that extensible. So, but that's a question along down the line. But it's
an interesting point, because ShareTribe has an advantage over Cocorico in that Cocorico is just a sort of PHP website and it's all kind of interlinked, whereas ShareTribe does seem to have a separation between the front end and the back end. So the back end's done in the Ruby on Rails app and the front end is done in React. So that might make it easier to swap out either or.
That's right. Yeah, that's my thinking, is that Ruby on Rails is quite a proven technology. And it'll be easy for us to hopefully change things as long as everything's open source.
So I was initially telling these guys that my concern with going down the road of Ruby, I mean, cards on the table, I'd love to use ShareTribe because I understand the code base a lot better. I don't know much PHP. I find it a bit ugly. But what I was trying to express to these guys was, you know, this is a social enterprise. I don't know what your situation is, but I'm giving my time at the moment because I have some, but my time might change, etc. And there's always a danger of developers coming and going. And my concern with going down the road of Ruby on Rails was it's probably going to be harder to find people who are willing to volunteer their time who know Ruby than it is who know PHP. Because PHP is sort of everywhere. Do you have a take on that? I mean, is that something that you think should be used to make this decision?
To be honest, I don't know enough about that sort of world.
Okay.
I know that PHP can be you can get into spaghetti sticking quite quickly.
Just to explain that to the guys, like code that's very messy and that lots of different people have been changing different bits of it. Rails by nature gives you a lot of structure. The PHP they're using is Symfony, which is like a model view controller thing, a bit like Rails as well. So hopefully that gives it a bit more structure. But I don't know what it is really, to be honest. I mean, my instinct, if I was being selfish, was just to go down the route of ShareTribe, because I know Ruby on Rails. I want to learn React. It was kind of fun, but I was looking at Cocorico mainly as a potentially more maintainable alternative if my time were to end, for example. But perhaps the decision should be based more on which closer fits what we already have.
Yeah, I think that's need just some further research and a meeting about that, really. But I mean, the thing is, we have actually firmed up quite a few bits of pathway now.
Yeah.
On how to move forward and things like that. So, it's about usability of these platforms, really.
Yeah.
And really, when I mean, hopefully we'll sit down with Pasco and look at maybe a few of the data models that might be happening.
Yeah.
And when we have an idea about that, and we can just do a simple, diagrams of what data we might think we might be collecting and how they're getting stuck together, and sort of the business process of it. And having a look at that, then that's a really good place, I think, at this point in time to start understanding how these technological decisions will pan out.
I think you're right. I think there is a missing step here, which is to because I'm not sure I have a good enough understanding of what the current system does, and a good enough understanding of which bits of what the current system does is the way we want it to work, and which bits are us trying to fight with Wix. Because what would be really handy would be if I had a really clear picture of what we want version 1 to look like, and the kind of things we might want to be able to do in version 2, then I could go to Cocorico, go to ShareTribe, try them out and say, well, you know what, a better fit is this one or that one. Whereas if I'm just doing it based on trying to make it look the same, I think there's a danger that I'll miss some really important thing. Like, for example, Cocorico doesn't have a user model or something like that. I mean, that's a crazy example, but so I mean, maybe the way forward is in parallel, I get the 2 servers up and running a bit better and play with them a bit more to get them looking more like the current Wix site. Maybe, I mean, sorry, I'm being a bit too prescriptive here, but maybe Peter, like, to try to download them both and to play with the code bases and see if you can get them up and running.
Yeah, I
and
can
if
put them on my laptop and stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
My knee-jerk reaction is that we need to get as much specification as we can and look and feel and things like that.
Okay.
Just so that it's either documented for further people.
Yeah.
And that because, as you know, any project like this where there's unknowns causes huge amounts of, let's say, miswork or overwork that's unnecessary. And if we have quite a clear idea about how this is going to look and feel, so it's really taking ideas from the Wix platform and just making them clearer as we speak in a group. Yeah.
So what's the way forward on that then? How do we get to the point where we all have agreed on it?
Really, it's a meetup, I presume, and we kind of like just interrogate Pathco.
I've already started this process. Just about to make a Telegram. So I don't know why I can't seem to add you to things, Peter.
Really? On Telegram?
Yeah. Strange. I can't actually. No, I can't add Danny either. Daniel. Anyway,
it sounds like you're not an admin on the group.
Well, I am though. It's not on the group. I was just trying to make a group, and it wouldn't let me. Anyway, I was thinking of making a tech group on a particular link, which I'll send you all individually now.
Yeah.
Is well, Luke has it already. This is like a prototype board basically, and this is where I've been doing the profile making. You'll probably be able to see some of the process of making the profiles.
Cool.
The profiles is made on a lot based on screenshots basically, and then making Python stuff. You can see the old email templates where it says color versions, and then if you see on the far left hand side, you've got the profiling journey. So this is actually the current profiling journey of a Dignity hat. The process from.
Have you just shared a link to something, Pascal? Did I miss something?
Yes, you should have a
link
in.
I can't hear you, mate. Sorry.
The prototype board that we've been playing on.
Yeah, I thought. Okay, you haven't just shared a link somewhere.
He shared it with us.
They haven't had it, but you've already got it. That's what I was saying when I shared it. I said, but you've already got this one. The prototype user journey board.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I was just wondering if you had just shared a link on Telegram or something, because nothing had come up. Carry on.
Have you ever wondered what feelings are good for? I certainly have.
Okay, so I'm going to carry on. So the profiling journey is on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
So that is the making a profile on the current version. And what I began doing also making the full user journey. At the top, there's a kind of overall version, but I've started doing started editing it down underneath. I might just call this version 2.
Got it.
So I've started doing it with Greg, for example, who's just booked a boiler service. So now I've started to do the new email templates. And someone recently, Kyle, has made a profile, so I can, I'm filling in the gaps basically, like where there's templates for emails, I'm filling in the gaps and then adding screenshots for each of the steps. So you've got the user journey there. You've got for the cause, for doers and hirers, and then extra steps that happen behind the scenes. They're
really good work.
It needs to be sorted. I think Luke has an idea about sorting it, because it's like there's a lot of colours rather than kind of in rows. I think, yeah, Luke's got some ideas around how to sort it better. But this is essentially, yeah, the kind of workspace where I've been making the profiles, and I'm happy to explain further kind of the process. But essentially, Wix is pretty messy. You know, it's not a particularly flush process. It takes time, and you know, it's just about functions to do what it does.
Can I just ask, is this representing what we like, or is this representing what it does?
This is representing what it does. This is like MVP style, like just about functions on Wix.
Got it. And
pretty far from what we want.
And is there a way? Okay, cool.
Hang on a second, just to clarify, Pasco. This part of real-time board that I'm screen sharing for us, is both, isn't it? So it's showing kind of currently what is happening, and then right next to it, we will have. It's a work in progress, isn't it? But we will have what we want to work towards version 2. Still not the ultimate end goal dream, just a realistic version 2 marketplace.
I think that'd be more valuable to actually have on the main board rather than on this board. This board feels like it's all current version stuff, and actually I think it might be, a separate board.
I think it'd be nice to have them next to each other though, so maybe just copy it somewhere. But yeah, I think it's been nice to have them side by side to kind of be able to easily highlight the differences, you know, what's staying the same and what will be added.
So if I may, I think that there's going to be along the line all sorts of decisions that are compromises where if this was a commercial product with a big company backing up behind it, then the process would be, and this may be an appropriate one for us as well, would be to sort of spec out a wireframe of exactly what we think we want the use cases and what the usability is to be, and then to build that and to match it. There are things that both ShareTribe and Cocorico do in a certain way that might be things we hadn't thought of for Dignity that might be great, and they might be different to the way that we want to do things in Dignity. And I'm wondering to what extent we need to consider things like, actually we can do things the way Cocorico does it because it's a lot easier rather than having to change it. Do you see what I mean? I'm wondering if there's benefit in, rather than, I mean, this is brilliant. This is really great because it gives a really clear vision of both what the thing does and what we'd like it to do. And I'm wondering whether it'd be handy to be able to distill this a little bit more in terms of like functionality we have to be able to do, functionality we have to have, and then make sure that they all fit, because that's going to be easier in the long run. Do you see what I mean? Like I'm concerned that I'll spend an hour getting ShareTribe to do something that Wix does, and it turns out that's something we didn't want Wix to do in the first place. Or that's a really good point. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that is totally my concern, is actually just trying to get this, well, it's story, isn't it, down and in people's heads, so that we don't spend time doing things that either are not necessary or can't work with other things and stuff like that.
And also just like to be able to make decisions like, we'd like someone to be able to contact a doer without logging in, but neither Cocorico or ShareTribe allow that. Writing that would cost a week's work. Is it worth it? Do you see what I mean?
I think there is a question coming up is if we use Facebook logins and things like that.
Yeah.
Because when we get
so it sounds to me like, sorry.
No, that's okay.
What were you going to say about the Facebook logins?
Well, we just need to get to a decision of whether that is a good thing or not.
Yeah. It's something that is offered by default in Cocorico. ShareTribe doesn't offer it. Yeah. It might be something we can remove quite easily from Cocorico. Yeah. What were you going to say, Pasco?
No, it sounds to me like before we spend any more time, like you said, trying to do things that match the current marketplace. There's a lot of value in collaborating on what we dream Dignity to be, what maybe is realistic as a version 2, and then what is, you know, MVP, what we really need, and doing that before any more time is put into trying to compare what we already have.
I think there's benefit in putting a bit of time into just seeing what they can do.
Yeah.
Because I'm of the opinion that they probably have some ideas that we hadn't considered, that we're like, wow, that's actually quite cool. So, for example, when we saw the dates thing in ShareTribe, that wasn't something that we considered before, and that's actually quite a cool thing. But I think you're right. I think before we make the decision, and I would certainly say before we try to customize either of them. So there's 2 levels to it. One is installing ShareTribe and using the admin system that comes with ShareTribe to make your marketplace look a certain way, and then going into the code and making it do stuff that it cannot do. And I think that we definitely shouldn't do until we have a clear picture of where we're trying to go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, just like burning loads of time, kind of aimlessly tinkering.
I don't think it takes.
I've made some minutes. I put the link a while ago in the chat on the side of this window. I don't know if anyone's noticed it in there. You have to pop it open to see it.
I've got that.
It'd just be cool if we want to capture sort of main takeaways from this chat.
Cool.
Where's the chat box? I'm on my phone.
I don't know how it comes up on phone. I always hang out on computer.
Do you want me to share a link to it in Telegram for you?
Yeah, just nice one.
Is that Pasco? Yes, there is. How do I get that over there?
At this stage, whilst we're talking about communications and capturing and stuff, do you guys think it's worth us creating a separate tech conversation on Telegram?
I don't think there's any harm in it. Do we have a clear picture of who would want to be in that group?
Well, I think us 4, I imagine, to begin with. Tommy could probably pitch in now and again.
Cool.
Who else have we got that is technically minded, that is interested?
Can I just ask something quickly, Peter? I just set these up on my server purely so that the guys could play with the front end of it. Do you? I don't know how easy it would be for me to give you access to that server. Would you think? Are you cool working locally for now, and then when we get a shared server, we play with it there?
Yeah. There's no.
Okay, brilliant.
About that, yeah. That's
really cool, because I wouldn't have the first clue how to set you up as an SSH user. But hang on a sec. What's going on? There's someone trying to get into my house. If you just give me a sec. Sorry, hang on.
Interesting.
So should we make a tech group? Does that sound good?
A new Telegram group? Yeah. Cool.
I'm back.
Cool. Just talking about the Telegram group again. It feels good to keep it separate. And I think for other people that aren't so interested in the tech side of it, they might not want to be bombarded by all the messages. I think it neatly puts it in a cell.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. That sounds really good. I'm going to have to scoot in about 5 minutes.
Nice. Okay. Maybe last things. Here's a last chance to check in with anything we would love to come out of this conversation or cover. Next steps, maybe. So do we feel like it? It sounds like we want to get. That's something I'm personally really excited to work on, is that user journey thing, like Pasco mentioned. I really want to flesh that out some more with some ideas around. Like what I think would be great in the version 2 marketplace user journey. I guess there's a user journey for users, but there's also in reality, there's also a sort of user journey for us behind the scenes in actually facilitating the gigs.
I mean, it would definitely be, I definitely want to get both ShareTribe and Cocorico up to the point where you can play with it without them falling over, because that's the only way you're going to get comfortable with the admin systems, and we're going to have to live in one of the... I'm sorry?
So we're just having some problem with your sound then. It sounded like a bit of an echo.
I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I want to get to the point where they both work without falling over, because you guys are going to have to live in one or the other of them. We can change it a bit and we can make things look a bit different and stuff, but as an administrator, you're going to have to live in one or the other. And so if there's one that you particularly hate, for example, that's a good reason to not use it. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely going to try to get that bug fixed. I'm going to try to play with Cocorico a little bit initially to make it look a bit more like the ShareTribe one. And then I think I want to start looking through the code bases a little bit as well, just to familiarize myself with the setup. I'll email Peter you details of the 2 open source platforms that I've downloaded and how and where the instructions are. And then I guess, the next steps once they're kind of up and running and working is to then flesh out. I mean, for me, rather than the user journey, the most handy thing would be just like a bullet point list of, hey, Peter, hi, very nice to see you. A bullet point list of, we have to be able to do this. So like a user has to be able to log in. A user has to be able to message someone. We have to have the ability to see a map. Do you know what I mean? Because those are presumably things that came out of...
Sorry. Is that like, is this for version 2 or is this like dream scenario?
This is actually just creating a landscape, proper hard landscape, for people to work with. Because the more that's there, it just sort of beds in and creates a foundation for the technical side.
No, I understand that point, but I guess I don't understand whether I'm saying we need people to have a map, or it would be amazing if people had a map, you know?
So
like, is it a necessity or is it a dream?
So to make that decision, if I just give you a bit of context to why I want it, we have 2 possible platforms that we can go down, and we can use one or the other or neither. They're both open source, and they both, with a developer with enough time, could do anything at all. And it's a question of what's the most cost-effective way to move the cost in terms of time to move this forward. And so we need something that, so for example, if we would really like this thing and it comes for free with ShareTribe and Cocorico will be a nightmare to get it to work, that's a point against Cocorico. If we have to, in version 1, have payment and there's no way to get payment to work on ShareTribe, we can't use ShareTribe. Do you see what I mean? So
so maybe traffic light system of like,
exactly.
You know,
yeah. So if there's a red, I mean, I don't know if red means nice to have or means vital, but if there's a red light one that in Cocorico would be an absolute nightmare, and in ShareTribe is already there, then that's a big point for ShareTribe, etc. But all these decisions are remakeable down the line, because one would assume that version 3, we're fully funded, we've got some full-time people, suddenly the possibilities open up more. Do you see what I mean? So I'm just more concerned about the short term, getting as much value out of our code base as easily as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. Annie, did you see the link I just posted to the signposting for developers? You've maybe seen that if you've seen the sort of original lead dev call out. In signposting to developers, the #1 resource at the top is a bullet list kind of spec that I sort of started playing with a while back.
See, this is why you shouldn't ask for things that already exist, because then.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's what you had in mind. This is kind of a bullet list of like kind of what the buttons would be and where they would be, sort of thing in my mind. Yeah. It doesn't sort of show flows.
What does do, if you don't mind my asking?
Do is like as opposed to hire.
I got it. Yeah.
Do.
Yeah. Cool. No, this is great. I need to familiarize myself more with all this stuff. But yeah,
I quite often, what I often do is I sort of just get sudden impulses to be like, oh, I feel really drawn towards this, and then I'm a pain in the ass to collaborate with sometimes, because something like that is potentially really useful. So it's great that I'm like doing it, but it'd be much better if I could be like, I'm going to work on this from like Thursday onwards for like a week. And I mean, obviously this is still very much open to collaborate on, but I just love people to look at this and go, oh, I've got an issue with this, or that looks great, or I'm not sure about this, what does that mean, or how about merging this?
Yeah.
So just to close on that, just for the benefit of anyone it doesn't make sense to, 10 seconds description of this. If you close everything, this is like just how I imagine Dignity Platform could look like when you first load it up. Got your profile, hire, do stuff, support a voice, and then possibly like an extra sort of dashboard toggle thing. So if you go to your profile, here's all these sort of options inside there. And here, if you like click your support list, you know, you go deeper and deeper into menus or pages. That's the root directory of the website, kind of.
Got it. Yeah. So this kind of represents a drop-down menu at the top, if we had that.
So if you want to hire someone, you like it would be something like click hire, enter the task you want help with, and then the search results appear. I want to sort them by nearest to me, so you could actually count the number of clicks: 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 clicks. But yeah, that's basically sort of what I had in mind when I was doing it. It's just like playing, so play with me on it.
Is this no, workflow is really cool. Is this nice to have, or is this definitely want, or is this just somewhere in between?
I feel very much like this is just Luke Flegg going off on one at the moment, and I feel like it gains legitimacy if you guys play with it, share your feelings about it, go, that doesn't make sense, I like this, can we change that? Then I'd feel like, oh, actually, this is now a Dignity resource rather than just Luke pissing about.
Sounds good.
Just as a note, I can't find this document. Where was it again?
Can you see the chat where I put the link in this Google Hangouts on Air?
It's actually there.
It's Dignity Dev Links.
Yeah. Hold it.
There's actually more direct link.
There is, but I thought it'd be nice to just have the kind of document that it sort of comes from, because there's other things in there that are useful if you don't already have links to them. But yeah, feel free to obviously link direct.
No, I can't.
I thought this would be a nice Google Doc to collate all kinds of useful things as we move forward. So, and this be a totally collaborative document. Really, now that we've got you guys involved, I feel like take ownership of this if it feels useful, and add your own links in there and links to Share Tribe and Cocorico and other sort of useful things.
Okay, this is the Dignity lead dev thing, though, or is that?
Yeah, just kind of useful, just all like the main Dignity development, tech development kind of links and resources in one place, sort of thing.
I'm sending you some stuff here as well.
Okay. I can't seem to get this chat for some unknown reason. So
okay, let me put the link in Telegram for you.
Okay.
Why did we make this tech group that I've been talking about? Like, we've already needed it 3 times in this whole conversation.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Shall I do it, or are you doing it, Pasky?
I don't know why I can't make one. It's really sad.
You're just trying to make a new group?
Yeah, like make one. Like, I can select Luke, and then I type in Daniel, and it's just not there.
Okay. Shall I try making it?
Yes, please. Yeah, it seems like Peter and Daniel are just not on my list of users to add to the group. But
We just don't want to have anything to do, mate. That's all it is. Right, so
Oh, we're done. It's created.
Nice. Thanks.
Maybe it's the phone app. Maybe it needs to be regenerated or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm using the computer actually.
That might be why.
Yeah, pretty to make it technical.
I sent you everything I have, Peter, in Telegram.
Oh, I can do
Okay.
that.
Is there anything else anyone needs to say while they can see my ugly mug? Because I could do it going in a minute if that's right.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds like we've got some good outcomes. You've explained exactly what you need and got a chance to meet Peter.
Really
And
nice to meet you, Peter.
Nice to meet you, Danny. Yeah, no, it's good. I think this is good. Yeah, just my concern is just pinning down functionality, which is nothing to do with tech. It's actually just people discussing, writing stuff on paper, writing data models and things like that. Just so that we have a very clear idea technically moving forward, because that's always a source of issues further down the line. Because the more we do that up front, the less work and effort will be later on. It's always a clear decision that.
As I discussed with you guys when we first met, there's a bit of tension between a sort of the kind of open, agile way that you want the organization to run, and then the requirements of tech. Tech is at its happiest in a kind of fascist state, essentially, and it's going to be interesting moving forward. But the more we can be specific, it doesn't have to be like we don't have to be complete or anything, but it's easier to do 4 specific things than 10 vague things.
Yeah. I have to draw you up there. Agile is just as required on spec, because
I apologize. I didn't mean agile in the computing sense. I just meant it in terms of I didn't know what to call the modern project management systems.
It's still agile, but it's actually just so that if you are doing a run, that you've got something to actually put on that note. Say, we need to redesign something, into user communication or something like that. So it's just a way that we can actually have a language for what this function does.
So I think we should have a well-defined next sprint, essentially.
Yeah,
is what we're saying. So we set up a set of 4 very specific goals, and then we do them. And then once that's done, we reevaluate. But we still have specific goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really hear that. I know what it's like to work on a big video editing project and a client being like, just like make it good. And then I edit something and they're like, what is that? That's not what I had in mind. And I'm like, I can't read your mind. But obviously this
exactly.
Pasco's phone ran out of battery. That's a bad one. I used to when I did like
for a client, we're all co-creating this together, so we'll share the creative license. But I know what you mean. Like, still, we want to align collectively. We want to align on something, whoever it's come from.
Yeah, exactly.
And its collaboration relies that we have, a good language of what this is going on about. So definitely. And it allows people to access more decisions and to collaborate better as well.
Pasco can't seem to join the call again. Perhaps we should call it quits then.
Yeah, okay.
Really nice to meet you, Peter. And
all right, Danny,
really great to see you guys again. And if we want to say anything bad about Pasco, now's the time. But it sounds
knobhead.
Wicked.
I'd like to add excitement to the conversation. That's his closing statement.
So have a great weekend. And Peter, if there's any queries or questions about either of those systems that I sent you links to, or you're having trouble getting them set up, I've been through the hell of it. So if you need any help, just let me know. And
sure.
If you find any other alternatives, or if you're convinced that we should write something from scratch, then let's get that conversation going.
No, it's just having an idea that if we were to do this from scratch, it's a very useful concept, because it will say, no, we don't want to go down that dark tunnel. Yeah,
I think that a well-funded version 4 of a Dignity platform that thousands of people are using would benefit from having its own code base.
Oh yeah.
But I think this is a good way to start the ball rolling, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if the numbers grow absolutely magnificently on a worldwide basis, then we would have to be thinking about, you know, concurrency and all sorts of performance issues then. And this is where we've gone past what our you know, our data model is, and we're actually having to look at how to make it really speedy and interactive.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll get there though. So
yeah, definitely. Cool.
All right.
Nice one, guys.
Nice to meet you, Danny.
All right. Have a lovely one.
Pleasure.
Cool.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for your precious time.
Bye. Bye.
Ciao, Belle. Have a lovely day. Bye. Bye.
Hey, Lou.